Hey everyone, welcome to Logan's Mosh Pit. Glad to have you here. Do me a favor and please subscribe if you haven't already. Today we're going to do another episode of the Memory Lane series. In this series, we're going to take a look back at some interesting articles and interviews from old guitar magazines. My dad has been collecting guitar magazines for about 30 years now. He saved a bunch of old magazines. He was kind enough to let me borrow some. So the one we're going to look at today is the June 2000 issue of Guitar World magazine. Here's the cover. Let me find my place. Bookmarks are overrated. Today I want to share an interview with you that was carried out by Alan DePerna. In this interview, Trent from Nine Inch Nails talks about what it was like working on the Fragile album and how expectations for rock stars have changed. Let's get right into it. Impressionistic, Debussy-esque grand piano interludes crop up throughout the Fragile. Did they come out of that initial period at Big Sur when you were trapped alone with the grand piano? That's where it started, yeah, sitting at the piano in Big Sur, and then coming back here. I have a piano at my house too, and I remembered I used to be a good pianist. At one time in my life, there were plans for me to drop out of school and be tutored as a concert pianist. Practice 10 hours a day. But then I got a Kiss album, and that put things into perspective. It'll be harder to get chicks as a concert pianist. So, during the initial stages of the Fragile, the piano served as a vehicle for me to get reacquainted with enjoying music. Somehow that got overshadowed by the business aspects of being in a band, arguing about royalties on imports, and like that. And not only the business aspects, but the social setting. The elements of celebrity, people backstabbing me, the inevitable things that creep in to invade your world. And stupid as this sounds, it took me sitting down at a piano for me to remember. That's why I'm doing this, because I love music. What kind of sonic role did you envision for guitars on the Fragile? A very large one, actually, because of the subconscious way I was working. Once I had a concept of what something should sound like, 20 parts would all come out at the same time. Under those circumstances, I found myself less inspired to reach for a synthesizer or sampler, and more inclined to grab a guitar. I was enjoying the imperfections of real instruments like guitar, which I can't play very well, technically. But that technical nativity often added to the overall mood. We were trying to make a record that sounded a little bit broken, like it might crumble. Not a nice steel framework, but rough wood with rusty nails, a plank might give out, or the whole thing might blow over in the wind. So we used real instruments for most of the stuff, and most of the sound on the record is guitar, way more than ever before. But with lots of different tunings, layers, and processings, the good thing about working with Alan Moulder is that he's Mr. Guitar Sound. After all, he produced the Loveless album by My Bloody Valentine. That record and that band were a big inspiration for me on this album in terms of sonic approach, in terms of what a guitar can do, and also in the way that some of the songs sound like, is the pitch slowing down a bit? That uneasy feeling. And I'd ask Alan how he did stuff like that on Loveless. While you were experimenting with sounds, would you usually have a lyrical idea in mind? Not on this record. I was real reluctant to get into lyric mode, because that's when I have to bare my soul, and I hate that. It's often unpleasant, so I try to avoid doing it if I possibly can and work on the music first, which was a problem sometimes. Most of the songs were pretty complete instrumental demos before I even thought of putting vocals on. The mistake I made sometimes was putting too much in. So there was no room to fit in the main thing, the vocal, the thing that most people pay most attention to. Did you then have to pull things out of the arrangement to make room for the vocal? Yeah, and often it was things where I'd be saying, but that's the best part of the whole song. That's the kind of thing that keeps you from finishing an album. And every record has a couple like that. Songs that fight you the whole way. On the Downward Spiral, it was Ruiner. On this album, it was We're in This Together. I wrote it quicker than most of the songs, probably. It was one of the last ones we did, and it just seemed like this is a pretty obvious song. It adds a bit of accessibility, and it won't be too hard to do, right? Oh my god, that was the hardest song we ever recorded. I thought I was going to go insane. The problem was that when the chorus came in, it seemed like the song was slowing down. We didn't know why. Objectively, we knew it wasn't slowing down. We could see the tempo wasn't shifting. We tried to double time the beat for the chorus, but then the verse sounded funny. It was a real puzzle. Finally, someone said, "What if we turn the drums down?" And that solved the problem. The chorus comes in and the drums get quieter. You'd never think to do that. I've never done it before, but it took 3 weeks to figure that out. That makes the guitar seem louder. That makes it seem more desperate. If only I'd tried it the first day. Are there lots of other versions of these songs squirreled away somewhere on your hard drive? Yeah, there were always too many ideas. Right now I've got 80 or 90 minutes of music finished and mastered that's either different variations of songs on the album or remixes done by everyone at the studio here for the most part. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. I don't know if I want to put it out as a retail record because it's more for the fans. It's not my big statement. I might give it away on the internet. I think we're going to do a new single for retail. I might put a big chunk of this other stuff on there. But I don't want it to be misinterpreted like, oh, it's 70 minutes long, it's a new album. No, it's not a new album. It's a side note, a diversion. That's an interesting thing about your catalog. There's lots of stuff. But there's really only 3 full and proper Nine Inch Nails albums. Pretty Hate Machine, The Downward Spiral, and The Fragile. I would want Broken in there too. It's short, but in terms of moving me away from Pretty Hate Machine, it was important. I probably just could have spent an extra month and made it a full album, but I had what I needed to say. Do you see those 4 major works as forming any kind of narrative progression, an ongoing story? Not necessarily narrative, but hopefully a progression. I don't believe any of them are rehashes of what came before. They just mirrored what was in my head at the time I did them. Hopefully people will remain interested wherever I move. Part of my predicament is that I'm not doing what, say, Kiss is doing now, obviously catering to a youth market when you're not youthful anymore. It seems foreign to me to think of music as catering to a certain audience. Like, if you're a 50-year-old film director and you're making a movie you know is going to appeal to teenagers, I can understand that in a movie sense. But music to me still seems pure. It should be approached as something where your spirit and soul comes out. I'm not trying to write songs to sell to Janet Jackson to put on her album. To me, music still has some element of fine arts or truthfulness to it. I don't know, is this making any sense at all? We're in a climate where there's no expectation that a rock or pop record is going to be fine art, whereas in the days of the Beatles or Pink Floyd, that was built into the marketplace. People would look forward to a new record by a major band and say, wow, what's the next great statement from these people going to be? Okay, that's a good way to put what I'm bumbling around with. In other words, the format of the rock album or long-form work is unexpected and therefore more difficult to sell as a piece of work as opposed to a piece of candy. Or like McDonald's. It seems like a good idea until it's in your stomach. Everything's so disposable now, and everybody seems to be happy, you know? Everyone wants to hear happy rock and pop music. Everybody's either happy or they're angry in a Korn or Kid Rock kind of way. In a comic book way, yeah. That's not to diss Korn. I read a level of insincerity in some of their posturings of anger. Some of those guys might claim you as a sort of godfather. Of being unhappy? Lord of anger? Wasn't the term hate pop first coined for you? I think I can claim that notch on my belt. So, have we defined the problem then? Audiences were once naturally predisposed to work hard at understanding a long and difficult album because rock stars were regarded more as serious artists, more like novelists or filmmakers, whereas now they're just expected to be entertainers. Is that it? Basically, yeah. Here's what I think. People buy what they're told to buy, and in the 70s, for instance, record companies were basically people who loved music and sold records to fans who loved music. When you bought Pink Floyd, you bought the album. You didn't buy it because it had money on it. And consumers in that era bought records expecting them to be a statement. As you said, now it feels as though music is just big business. With all the mergers that have gone down, big corporations now own all the record labels. All the independents, for the most part, have been sucked into the vacuum. And that just seems to go hand in hand with the fact that CDs are just little plastic things to sell now, units to be moved. There's less art in a CD than in a piece of vinyl. I'm sorry to sound like Mr. Luddite, but a whole level is missing. The large-scale artwork, linear notes, even the smell of the vinyl as it comes out of the sleeve, checking the inside groove to see if any mastering notes or messages have been written there. Also, MTV has assured that image is more important than content, which is a sad thing for music. From a pop culture standpoint, the line between actor slash singer slash model is indistinguishable for the most part. A pretty face and a gimmick speaks louder than a good song, although there are exceptions to that rule. If The Cure came out today, would they have a chance? Even when the Downward Spiral came out in '94, there was Nirvana, Tool, Jane's Addiction, and Rage Against the Machine starting up. It seemed like there was a host of smart bands that I was hoping would be around for a while. Where's the counterparts of that today? Maybe I'm getting older, jaded, and more cynical, but I don't particularly think Bare Naked Ladies and Blink-182 are the same thing at all. But don't you think that the average person has an emotional need for something more than this disposable fare? Yeah, I make music hoping some of those people are out there. On the other side of the coin, do you ever feel pressured by the messianic thing? In the 60s and 70s, people really thought rock stars were God. Do you get that? People looking to you to make meaning of their life? If I read my fan mail a little more closely, I suppose I would. I touch a nerve with some people. You can imagine the demographic of people that would write me a letter. I just feel an artistic responsibility to stay honest with my music. If I'm suddenly happy tomorrow and the clouds part, and I write a Paul McCartney album, it'll be truthful to where I am at that time. I'm not going to say, I've got to write angry, depressed music because that's what's expected of me. Whatever I do, I want to remain true to myself, whoever that is. Well, that's the end of the interview with Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails. Do you agree or disagree with what he said? Let me know down below. That does it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you next time. Until then, rock on.